Welcome to Healthcare IT Today. I'm John Lynn, together with my colleague and friend, Colin Hung. The world of technology and healthcare are ever-changing in new and novel ways, and that's why we love this stuff. So join us as we discuss the latest healthcare and health IT news, meshed together in new ways which help generate ideas and new perspectives. Plus, we'll have a little fun along the way. Today, we're going to be doing an Olympics-inspired episode looking at healthcare IT. And be sure to follow the show on social media at the hashtag HITSM and our personal accounts at TechGuy and at Colin_Hung. Plus, check out our 20 years of health IT content at healthcareittoday.com. Colin, what's the over-under on how many hours a day you're going to watch the Olympics? Is that... I'm putting 3, and I'm taking the over.
Yeah, you should definitely take the over. I'm definitely watching a lot. I mean, Winter Olympics are, being from where I am from, Winter Olympics are I watch almost everything except for figure skating. I'm not a big figure skating fan, but yeah, the luge, the bobsledding, Jamaicans got a bobsled team this year. Again,
yeah, I saw they
that's
qualified.
going to be
What percentage of your Olympic watching is hockey, though?
Well, yeah, pretty much 50%.
Would you miss a Canadian hockey game?
No, that.
Okay.
I'd lose my citizenship. Exactly. But equally, I'm curious to see how the Swedish team's going to do, and I'm actually really, because all the NHL players are there, right? So there's a player on every team that I want to cheer for. So it's actually going to be a really fun tournament. And the U.S. has an amazing team, captained by Austin Matthews, who happens to be a Toronto Maple Leaf. So, hey, it's going to be good.
It's going to be fun to watch him. That's for sure. It should be really competitive this year.
Yeah, so it's going to be fun to kind of take this Olympic theme and put it into this podcast. So right off the bat, John, let me ask you, if we were to give health IT challenges a podium, which are the 3 health IT challenges that would be on the podium in your mind?
So I don't know if I should start with the bronze or the gold, but how about I just start with the gold? I'll do it backwards. But the gold medal for me goes to costs. People trying to figure out costs, using IT to lower costs, trying to figure out their IT costs. That's the gold medal in 2026 for sure when it comes to health IT, is addressing costs and figuring out how to improve your costs. So I'd say that's my gold medal. It's the hottest topic. I think it's what we're going to hear at Vive and HIMSS and probably every conference all of 2026. So that's my gold medal winner right now, is how can you lower costs? I'd say the second challenge, this is more of a CIO perspective or even IT leader perspective, which is figuring out AI. There's so much innovation going on that I think, the silver medal challenge for these leaders is, okay, what should I do now? What's a good bet to take now? Because in the future, it's going to become the dominant platform or whatever. And do I need 600 AI solutions, or should I just focus on, 6 too few, right? 20 or 30. I don't know, right? But that's the whole point. Figuring that out and knowing what you should embrace and what you shouldn't is the big challenge. And then I'll hit my bronze, and then you can hit yours. But my bronze one is really it's hard to describe. But I would describe it as a leader, as a CIO leader. It's balancing the fires that you have to put out and innovation. There's so many things going on. Infrastructure that dies, licenses that renew at really expensive rates. There's, whatever. A new building is being thrown up in your organization. You just acquired a new organization. Now you got, it's these fires that you have to deal with, right? You have to be able to go and kind of deal with the pressing need, but then also while dealing with the fires, making room for innovation and even the thought, the time to think about how should you be doing innovation in your organization. I think that's a real challenge because there is so many fires and there is so much innovation.
Interesting. I like them. Hard to argue with those. Those are definitely big challenges. I would flip your top 2. My gold medal actually goes to AI. And I think getting your arms around what AI is in healthcare is the biggest challenge right now. And I say that for two reasons. One, I think there's a fear of being left behind. And I think that fear is very, very motivating for people. So, meaning motivating for CIOs, but also motivating for organizations. Like, we don't want to get left behind, so we got to do something. I also think it's a wild west, right? So trying to figure this out is very hard. It's a big challenge. The cost one, I would put silver, only because I think what's well understood, there's some pretty well-known things we can do to reduce costs, right? And actually, funny enough, one of them is AI based, like just implementing AI scribes reduces a lot of costs, a lot of frustration, and so forth. So I think there's some known solutions there that we can apply. Certainly, I think it's a hot topic, but not as much of a driving force as the gold one of just figuring out AI in healthcare. I would love to say that bronze was going to be interoperability, but we all know that it's not even going to be, it didn't even qualify for the Olympics. Like, it's not a priority for anybody. But I think the big challenge for me is actually a challenge around access. So it's sort of the flip of costs, because we're starting to see that capacity is a problem. So how can we basically maximize access to our facilities, our people, our care with the existing resources that we have? So I think patient access is a big challenge. And also, I think this is something that a lot of politicians, a lot of community-based organizations are also tackling. Like, how can we just improve access to care for our communities? How do we make sure we have the right number of family docs? How do we make sure we have the right number of clinics? All those things. That would be my bronze.
Interesting. I kind of feel like our rating system is like figure skating judges, that there's some ambiguity in how we rate. So hopefully people, chime in the comments, send us on social media. What are yours, and who's right and who's wrong, Colin or I? How would you rank the medals, and what would you give a medal for healthcare IT challenges?
That's going to be interesting. We should definitely put that out on social media. So let's move on. Let's move on to the next one, John. This one's fun. If there was going to be an Olympic medal given to health IT, what would it be?
So when I was pondering this concept, right, like, what does health IT deserve? Unfortunately, the cynical side of me, and no one would count me as cynical, was that health IT is really amazing at securing the status quo. Which is true, right? Like, a lot of times, like, the EHR in many ways secured the status quo. It replicated the current process and many of the current systems and things that were happening. So anyway, that's my cynical take. But the one that really, less cynical, more optimistic, which I think is more the nature of healthcare IT today. To me, the gold medal goes to the amazing people, like the people within health IT. To the largest extent, are really thoughtful. They're really kind. They have the right ambition. Even many that want to make money and create a successful business, they understand that there's also a mission behind it as well, and they want to do both, right? A few bad eggs in there, right? I'm sure, certainly in healthcare in general, there's lots of fraud and other things. But I think within the health IT world, the majority are focused on providing a quality product that improves the lives of patients, lowers the cost, improves the lives of the clinicians who care for the patients. So, to me, I'm giving my Olympic medal to all the good people in health IT.
Wow. I like that. Everyone gets a medal. No, I'm kidding. For me, I think the one thing that health IT deserves a medal for it is actually digitizing health. Like, if you remember back when we started this journey back in the meaningful use days, like, there was still a ton of paper, like a lot of paper in healthcare. Yeah. And so I would give the medal for that, because yes, EHRs could be better than they are today. We could have done a better job of making them interoperable. There's a lot of things we could have done, but for the most part, we've moved from paper-based healthcare to electronic healthcare. And I think for that, health IT does deserve a medal, because that was not easy. And we did it fairly quickly. There were a lot of bumps. I mean, again, it could have been better. Right? We shouldn't have some of the problems we have today. But in general, I would say that was pretty amazing that we were able to do that in such a short time. And so, yeah, that to me is the one thing that I think health IT can really be proud of and wear the medal proudly, is to say, hey, we digitized. Even I would go as far as even fax, right? I know we have a lot of fax machines, but that's very rare now. We have electronic fax, we have e-fax that's still digitizing. So that's where my medal will go.
It's kind of fascinating. Like, play that thought experiment out a little bit. Like, if we hadn't gone to the EMR, imagine we were fully on paper today, or 90% on paper today, rather than the 90% on EMR and EHRs, and other technology, right? Like, could AI do quarter? Could 10%, of what, like they would barely be able to do anything if we were still on paper. So that's a good one. I like that one, Colin, because it's true. Like, if we were still on paper, try doing value-based care on paper, right? Like, I don't think any of the value-based care companies could really even exist. Now the EHRs didn't necessarily facilitate value-based care as well as they did. I did a nice video with Farzad from Aladade recently, and kind of highlighted that technology was important it is important to facilitate value-based care, but maybe not in the models of EHR that we had. But to your point, if we were still on paper, that would be an entirely different discussion. So, yeah,
I mean, it is hard to go back and remember those days because we've been in this one for so long. Like, it's been decades, right?
Well, we take it for granted as soon as it comes, right?
Exactly. We've taken it for granted now, because back then the only thing that was digitized was the billing process. Like, that was the only part where everyone was like, yeah, like that's 90% electronic, because we have to enter all the claims into these systems or send it electronically to get paid.
True. Claims were harder even.
Right. That was it. But everything else was done on paper charts. That's why we had those giant billing and RCM groups, like, to read the charts and code them and do all those things. Like, we forget that, it was the reverse. It was 80% were paper, which we now could I can't even imagine trying to run a modern healthcare organization on paper-based files.
Yeah. Someone recently told me that they were told that they had handwriting like a doctor. And I almost jokingly said, what do you mean? Like, because it has been so long, like, that's not an issue now, right? Like, right. You can read it.
Yeah. I mean, again, I know we're talking about Olympics, but just think about e-prescribing even, right? Like, that was where a lot of that came from, was I can't read this. I can't read what the heck they prescribed to you. So I'm just going to guess. And imagine all the errors that happen and all the now we don't talk about that anymore. Right. Yeah. So
we talk about 30 other problems, but
yes. Yes.
But that's what an Olympic athlete does, right? You fix one thing and then you realize, wait, there's 30 minute things. I could fix my diet. I could sleep better if I.
Yeah. Now we're nibbling at. No, I wouldn't say we're nibbling at the edges here. We still got a lot of work to do, but
we still have some core work to do.
Yeah, we're not. I can't say we've reached the top of the mountain yet, but anyways, that was a fun one. And hey, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to Healthcare IT Today with John Lynn and myself, Colin Hahn. Today, we're doing an Olympics-inspired episode. This week's episode is brought to you by Sway Health. If you're in healthcare marketing, PR, communications, or patient experience at a hospital, a clinic, a payer, a health IT company, or an agency, you need to be at our Sway Health Live 2026 event. That's happening April 29th to May 2nd in Foxborough, Massachusetts. It's the premier event where you get to learn, network, and get energized. Head over to live.sway, that's SWAAY.health, and that's where you can learn more. So, John, here's another good one. What Olympic sport do you think best represent what it's like to be in health care or health IT right now?
I was debating this one because there's a lot of sports that could, there's so many skills, and, I love a good analogy. At first, my thinking was the marathon. Like, it feels like what we're doing in healthcare is a marathon and it's never going to end. And there's always more to do. I mean, we kind of highlighted that in the previous question, right? Like, so, the marathon is a good one. But then I started thinking about it. It's like, no, it's not really a marathon because that's super repetitive. And healthcare is much more dynamic, right? And so then I thought, no, it's more like the biathlon. kind of the marathon of Winter Olympics, but also you're doing a marathon, and then after you finish your marathon, you got to like lay down or stand up and shoot a rifle, like a high precision thing. And that's kind of what we do in healthcare, right? Like we got this marathon effort to implement the EMR. And then after you do that, then you got to like do this little fine tuning of clinical documentation to improve it for the person, which is kind of like shooting a rifle, right? And then you got to start running again, right? Like, because guess what? There's a new Epic release or new Meditech release, right? You got to roll those out, and then now you're running again, and then now you got to do some fine tune stuff, right? You realize your infrastructure's off, and you got to do some fine tuning so that the logins happen quickly. So, to me, I thought the biathlon with the kind of endurance, but then also the fine precision, that's kind of healthcare IT. There's a lot of endurance stuff, but a lot of really touchy fine tuning stuff that needs to happen to make sure clinicians and patients aren't hurt.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. Biathlon is not an easy sport, right? Like onto TV, they make that target look very
I've never
big,
done it.
right? But the target literally is not much bigger than a quarter. Like that's
Yeah.
how small that circle really is. Like it's
crazy.
like I think 1.5 times a quarter. Like that's how small that thing is. And yeah, after running basically a marathon, you have to go sit down or lie down and try and fire a weapon. So I like it. I think that's a pretty good analogy. Especially around like you talk about the precision, because even just replacing an IT system requires high precision because it's so interconnected with every other system, right? So if you want to upgrade, switch vendors, even upgrade to a new version from the same vendor, there's a lot of precision that has to go into it. And then around it, you have to do all the change management. You have to do all the prep work. There's a lot of stuff that you have to, all the testing. That to me is like that endurance part of it. So
it's like the startups that say we can implement in 2 weeks. Every CIO is like, you lost me at 2 weeks. Because there's a lot of detail and fine tuning that, let alone governance and buy-in and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. For me, I mean, I was thinking the same as you. I was thinking like a marathon kind of makes sense. The steeplechase was kind of another one because like you have to run around a track and then you have to hop over a bunch of obstacles only to get wet. And then you got to keep going and do it again, right? Like that to me is kind of like, that kind of is what it feels like to be in healthcare and health IT these days. Like there's all these obstacles that you have to overcome and then when you get over the obstacle, there's a pool of water waiting for you, right? Like
you don't want to trip in it, which happens a lot.
You don't want to stumble. You don't want to trip. Yeah. So that was one I was thinking was the steeplechase. And then I thought maybe it's more like the relay. Like, everyone's running like 100 meters or 400 meters and you're handing a baton off to the next department or the next group. But being from Canada, I mean, I have to say hockey.
I was going to say, you have to. Getting checked into the board while you pass to your partner? Or what?
That's right. I think being in health IT right now probably feels like being in the middle of a hockey game. What I mean by that is you're getting banged around by things that you probably didn't see coming. Right? Like policy changes, technology changes, this thing called AI, right? Probably feels like you're playing hockey and getting checked from behind or getting hit with the puck and then you're expected to go like all out down the ice to try and score and achieve your goals, right? It's kind of what it is. So I think there's a lot to be said about maybe looking at healthcare IT as a hockey analogy. You are playing as a team. You can't win alone. I mean, unless you're Connor McDavid, or Sidney Crosby, maybe. But even then, you have to get through so many obstacles in order to achieve your goals in hockey. And I think that's kind of where we are now at Health IT. There's so much you have to think about, all these interrelationships with technology, the implications with your clinical teams. It's not that easy to get to the goal. So I like the hockey analogy.
Yeah, it's a good analogy, especially because you're right. Some people are better at navigating all those obstacles. Like you said, Connor Bernard, you should have mentioned Eichel. I can't believe you didn't in my VGK. But, like there's some people that know how to navigate the policies, the regulations, the obstacles, the governance, everything that goes into it. Here's another one for health IT companies. How about curling? They throw their stone, they get it in the center, and then the government goes and throws the next stone and just knocks them the crap out. And they're like, what? You just changed the whole game. And so maybe curling for health IT companies.
I'm glad you say that because curling is just one of these games where that is so so Winter Olympics, right? Like so few countries play that sport. And everyone looks at it going, how can this be a sport, right? All you're doing is throwing this rock down. It's like tiddlywinks almost, right? Like with giant rocks. But yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, it throws you for a loop. It actually requires a lot more skill than you think. But yeah, I
I
mean, it
was
can
gonna
be
say,
like
I think
throwing.
it's a skill. I don't know a sport, but anyway, that's a topic for another day.
That is definitely one. All right, last question, John. Winning the Olympics itself is a big deal for a city, or it can be a big deal, but it's a big financial burden as well. We've seen a lot of cities now actually don't want to put in an Olympic bid because of all the infrastructure costs and the bankruptcies we hear about. That's kind of analogous to some of the things we see in healthcare. So when is it great and not so great to win a healthcare IT contract in your mind?
Yeah. So, I mean, as someone who was in Salt Lake when they won the 2022 Olympics, right, and then volunteered, I know what it's like for a city to win. Ironically, I just had a hernia surgery, so I couldn't go down and enjoy all the fair because I was like laid up, recovering. But I was so excited, and it was amazing to be part of it. And now, of course, we won 2034. I'm recording from Salt Lake, so this seems like an appropriate question for today. It is interesting. I think, a lot of it goes back to, do you have the infrastructure? Because Salt Lake has the infrastructure. When they were kind of doing their meetings in Milan, as leading up to the Olympics, they're like, hey, we've got the venues. They're on pace. They're ready. Like, and the IOC was like, well, slow down, be more ambitious, right? Like, it was interesting because they're like, it's not like most cities where it's like, oh, we still got to build a stadium and 4 other venues and all this. Like, well, we have the infrastructure and we're good. Yeah, it was interesting. So I think the same is true in health IT to some degree. Do you have the infrastructure and the people to be able to execute on the win? I think a great example of that is, I actually think that Epic not winning the DoD and VA contracts, like, I think that was actually a big win for Epic, especially Epic's users. And I harken back to a previous time when Epic won Kaiser. I was talking to some of the Epic users that were part of Epic before Kaiser, chose them. And then when Kaiser did, I think, a $4 billion deal or something, it was like massively, huge deal, big implementation. Makes sense. Kaiser ended up dominating the next few development cycles, and the other customers, I wouldn't say they were left behind. I mean, Epic took care of them, but they definitely didn't get the attention because Epic was so focused on making sure Kaiser was a success. I think that same thing would have happened if Epic would have won the DoD. They would have been developing all sorts of crazy things for the DoD situation, remote ones, devices, et cetera, that the DoD has unique because they do have a unique environment where they care for soldiers. And that would have distracted them from providing some of the innovations. I mean, as we're recording this, they just announced their new AI charting initiative, right? Like, would that have gone? Probably, right? But they have 116 other AI projects going on at the same time. Would they have been able to do that if they'd won the DoD? I'm not sure, right? Like, so I think that's an example. Like, it was good, I think, that Epic didn't win it. It would have been a distraction for them, or at least it's good for the customers. From a financial perspective, I mean, we could argue, but for their customers, it was definitely a win.
Yeah, it's funny. Like this, as I was thinking through this analogy, like at first I was struggling with it. Like, is winning the Olympics like winning a contract in health IT? But as I thought about it more, I think this is very true for a lot of startup companies, a lot of young companies in healthcare, because winning a contract with Mayo Clinic, winning a contract with any provider, not even that famous, seems like winning the Olympics. Like, hey, this is a great thing. Like, hey, we got this contract now, right? Like, we've made it. But then you have to deliver. And nothing spreads faster than a bad reputation. So even though you might have won the contract and maybe you got the money and you got the prestige, you get to announce it, right? Like, kind of like winning the Olympics. You actually have to, now you have to like host it, right? And it, like you said, if the housing isn't right, if the venues are haphazard and not up to par, it's going to look bad. Like, your city is going to be worse off than it was had you never won it. And so I think that can happen when you're not careful, when you're so focused on just winning, when you're just trying to add a logo to your logo wall, that can be some of the worst reasons to try and go after that business. When your salespeople overpromise, when your implementation team is not able to deliver, when your product team just can't deliver the functionality the way your client wants it, or maybe delivering it in a way that only this one customer wants it that way, and then it's not applicable to all the others, that can lead to some disaster. So the more I thought about it, the more this analogy kind of makes sense. And yeah, I think this can be, I won't quote any exact examples, but I see this happening a lot with smaller companies. So they win a contract, it might look good for them for a little bit. And then you start hearing the stories of, hey, this is a failed implementation, or it's taking a lot longer than they thought. And now that company is soured on, that organization is soured on that company. And that kind of reputation doesn't leave a company very easily.
Yeah, that's the thing I've seen is what you described near the end, where it's like, you get that big customer, but then it dominates your roadmap in a way that often what you're creating isn't attractive to maybe the larger customer population that you could sell to. And I've seen that a few times, or I've seen the opposite where they didn't win the customer. It forced them to really focus on the value that they created. They went and sold 50 other customers and were really successful because they weren't distracted customizing it for that large customer who obviously you want to listen to if they've just paid you millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? So I think I've seen that as well, right? Where sometimes not winning is good. It causes you to focus it, right? But if you have a great partner, then you probably want the deal. But yeah.
Well, John, this has been fun. It's been fun, and hopefully the Olympics will be good for everyone. By the time this airs, I think we'll probably be closer to the end of the Olympics. So hopefully everyone's happy with their countries and the gold medals that everyone's won. And hopefully Canada's taking home the gold in hockey because that's the medal we're all looking for.
No, we're not hoping for that.
Well, let's hope Canada I'm hoping for that.
But I still want US-Canada gold matchup. That is the best game.
That will be the best game. That will be the best game out there. And, hey, I want to see the skeleton in the luge because who doesn't like watching people zip down at 100 miles an hour down a mountain?
Yeah, man.
Exactly. Well, thanks to all of you for tuning into this episode of Healthcare IT Today. For more details about our show, check out the programs page at healthcarenowradio.com. And please share your voice and engage with the community at healthcareittoday.com and on social media using the hashtag HITSM. I'm Colin Hung, along with my friend and Health IT collaborator, John Lynn. Thanks for listening and have a great week.